Hi, guys. My name is Demonica, and welcome to Let Me Be Bold. Here on this podcast, we are going to be exploring mental health and what it's like being a Black woman from my perspective, and spirituality and creativity, and the intersectionality between where all of those places meet. Today, we are going to be talking about birthdays, and I'm really excited to start my podcast talking about birthdays. Partially because my birthday was a couple weeks ago, December 17th, I turned 28. And so the title of this podcast is Ready for 30, because believe it or not, 2023 is coming and I will soon be 30. Today, in addition to talking about birthdays, we are also going to be covering what it's like to grow into yourself as well as achieving personal goals. And these are both something that I have been able to experience and I'm continuing to experience here on the back end of my 20s. So let's get into it. So, like I said, a couple weeks ago, I turned 28 and I was so excited for my birthday. Baby Spider-Man dropped, and I was like, yeah, I'm going to see Baby Spider-Man, going to get me some new nose rings, going to get all of the free cake and things that come with birthday treats. And instead, I got a positive COVID test. And so I was home on the couch watching TV instead of living my best 28-year-old life. Now, there was actually a lot of good in being able to spend my birthday at home, even though it is not what I had hoped for myself. I have lived in Colorado for just over 3 years now, and I have been gifted with this beautiful community. And all throughout the day on my birthday, people dropped things off. I mean, I got macaroons, I got 3 different kinds of cakes and cards, and a group of my coworkers came and I stayed inside and they were outside with masks, and some of them zoomed in and they sang happy birthday and brought balloons and brought me also a wellness kit that had like vitamin C and puzzles and Gatorade to help me get through being sick. And so I am so thankful for everyone who came to buy and drop things off for my birthday. What that has taught me is that there is power in being still. I am a person who is on the go constantly. I work as a mental health therapist and I do in home family therapist, and so I am constantly driving from one client's house to another. I'm pretty heavily involved in my church. I co lead one of our small groups for the 20s, 30s community, and so I'm constantly doing things in and around my church community. I'm always on the go. And so being able to be still for my birthday, but being forced to, it's not something I chose, but being forced to be still has gave me time to sit and reflect and to be thankful that I am surrounded by people who are willing to give so much to me, especially when I am the type of person who gives so much to others. And so it was a beautiful gift. I did have some challenges being in quarantine, though, as a person who is a quality time, physical touch type person. And so when I was released from quarantine, it was right before Christmas, and it was definitely challenging re-engaging in the community and trying to keep everyone safe. And I'm sure that these are all conversations and pressure that we've put on ourselves over the past couple of years living through a pandemic. on when is it a safe time after a positive COVID test to re-engage with the community. And so I've still kept my distance a few days after that, but overall it was nice to be able to be still and just be loved on during that time where I was stuck in the house. Speaking of being stuck in the house, if you are a millennial like me or any other point of your life, you probably experienced this too. But millennials specifically, so many of us over the next couple of years are going to be turning 30. I haven't reached it yet. Several of my friends are in their 30s now, and it is so interesting the type of feedback that I've gotten from my friends who have reached 30. I've heard a lot of, well, you don't understand, Demonica, because you haven't reached 30 yet. Like, you'll know when you get there, about this like loss and mourning of losing the rest of your 20s. And I think that that loss and mourning is even more amplified because I feel like so many people feel like their 20s have been robbed because we've spent it in a pandemic. I know I have been feeling that, especially recently. Not so much at the beginning, as I was 26 when the pandemic started, and now turning 28 and getting closer to 30. I'm like, man, I feel like so much of my life is on pause because we're in a pandemic. And how do you live life when so many things feel on pause? And so, no, I haven't reached my 30s yet, but I have been doing my best to be intentional about continuing to grow as a person and continuing to experience life, even though it feels like the world is holding its breath as we move through this huge community health issue. So, what does that look like for me? What has growing into myself looked like, especially over the course of the last couple of years being in a pandemic? For me, it's looked a couple of different ways. I think one of the things that I've gotten to do is try new things and get back into hobbies that I lost because I was in college and then I was in grad school and then I was getting my first big girl job and moving to Colorado. And so if there are hobbies and things that you really engaged in high school that you want to get back into, I encourage you to do that. Some of the things that I picked back up was reading for pleasure. I have so many books. Matter of fact, just last week I bought four, and I've already read through one of them in its entirety. I love to read, and so it's been nice to take a break from binging all of my Netflix shows to just sit and read and hear different voices outside of my own. The other thing that I picked up, and a couple of my friends picked up too, is we got roller skates. Now, when I was in middle school, I spent so much time at the roller rink. Like, that's where me and my friends hung out and we were requesting songs, and I haven't roller skated in years. I'm not sure if I've done that in my adult life. And so I bought me the most beautiful pair of roller skates. It took me a long time to order those roller skates because apparently everybody had the same idea of getting roller skates during a pandemic. Everyone's spending a whole lot more of time outside. Totally understandable. So I got me a pair of roller skates, and so I've been roller skating around the house. The other thing that I got during this time was a dog, and it's been really nice to have her. Her name is Mariposa because it's somebody else. I live alone, and she can't talk back to me, but sometimes I talk to her. I'm talking like I'll get dressed and she'll be right there in my closet looking at me, and I'm like, all right, what do you think, Mari? How does this look? And of course, she just stares at me affectionately, and I just really appreciate the feedback that my dog has given me, especially since I don't have feedback of people the same way that I used to. So, those are a couple of things that I have been doing during my growth years, my late 20s, in a pandemic. I've also been baking a lot more, which my friends love because then they get fun treats to eat. And then at the same time, they're like, Demonica, do not bring another cake over here. Who is going to eat all of this? And the answer is definitely not me, because I will bake and bake and bake. And I'm not even like a huge sweet person. So I don't even eat a lot of the things that I bake, but it's fun doing it for other people. I've watched the entirety of the Great British Baking Show throughout the pandemic. So I have gotten some fun ideas about things to do. Some other ways that I have grown, I did an apprenticeship through my church. I did year 2 of apprenticeship, and that was really cool because I got to practice speaking more in the form of giving sermons. I've gotten to serve my community, and I've gotten to be able to just have coffee with people or go on walks with people outside, and exploring that passion and the love that I have for the Christian church is something that I've really been able to enjoy. And so if you are at this point of like, I'm engaging in this career, but I'm interested in doing maybe some other things, I would encourage you to look for something like an apprenticeship where you can learn from others and still be able to engage in your regular job too. I know that rent is due on the 1st and so I'm there right with you guys. Another thing that I've been able to do to grow into myself is fully take ownership of my natural hair. I started transitioning back to natural hair when I was in college. I grew up getting relaxers, and so my hair was always straight. And one of the things that I tasked for myself was to find 5 go-to natural hairstyles that I could do really well and that I could wear in my everyday life. So it's been fun spending a lot of time in the mirror. I found a hairstylist here in Colorado, and so I've also spent a lot of time playing with color. My hair has been a few different colors over the last year, and I didn't know that I necessarily reached that goal until I was talking to somebody in my group, and she was like, every time I see you, your hair is a different hairstyle. And I was like, oh, yes, I did it. So that has been something fun for me to be able to do. And of course, being a pandemic, I've spent a lot of time alone, just reflecting on my life. I got connected to a therapist, processing through some of the things that I get stuck and barriers to my growth. And I know that you are hearing this from a therapist, and sometimes people have even said to me, like, you're a therapist who has a therapist? And I'm like, yes, I think everyone should engage with a therapist at some point in their life. And if you are already connected to a therapist, props to you, and definitely love on your therapist, because we have been going through our own lives and our own stories through a pandemic at the same time, helping other people and other families process through a pandemic. And it has definitely been challenging work as much as it's been rewarding work to see families grow and engage with each other through family conflict. So that I would encourage you guys to spend some time thinking about the ways that you want to grow personally and identify what are some of the next steps that you can take to grow personally. And then finally, the last thing that we are going to talk about today is personal goals. And so, what are some of my personal goals, and what are the steps that I take to achieve them? So I have career goals. And for example, I just accomplished one of my career goals back in December. I became a fully licensed marriage and family therapist. And that is something that I have worked towards since 2018. And so that was a huge victory for me to be able to reach that personal goal. But personal goals don't just have to be career goals, and they don't have to be just finance goals either. I created for myself a bucket list of 30 things that I wanted to do before I turned 30. Now, I am going to have to make some amendments because I'm not sure if some of them I'm going to be able to reach during a pandemic. For example, one of my goals, which is pretty cliche, is to spend New Year's Eve in New York. And upon further reflection, I don't know if I want to be surrounded by that many people. So yes, I will probably go back to New York. Not sure if it's going to be around New Year's Eve. Some of the other goals that I set for myself as a bucket list is to see 20 states. Y'all, I got on an airplane for the first time as an adult. I had graduated college and my grandparents took me on a trip. We went on a cruise out from New Jersey to Bermuda. And so the flight from Dallas to New Jersey was the first time I'd ever been in a plane before. And so I was like, okay, I got to catch up. I feel like a lot of people around me have traveled and I'm just not traveled through our country. And so this past year in 2021, I actually met that goal of seeing 20 states I had never stepped foot in before. And so that was an amazing accomplishment, especially because I wasn't sure if that was something I was going to be able to reach in a pandemic. But lots of road trips later, and I was able to reach that goal. Another thing that's kind of random that's on my 30 before 30 list is to see a burlesque show, which I was able to do this year down in Denver. Me and a group of my girls got together. We went down to Denver. We got a hotel room. We went to a pretty nice restaurant on 16th Street Mall. And then we walked over to the clock tower to see a burlesque show. Now, that is something that I probably would not have done, especially in my early 20s, but it was something that I wanted to do, and I was able to do it with a group of friends, and we had a lot of fun, and it was a lot of body positivity, to see people express that, and to see also people like cheer on others who love their bodies well. And so it was a really great experience. So for you, whatever your personal goals are, some of it might be a little bit outside of your comfort zone. Some of it might be a little bit outside of the way that you think of yourself. It might be outside of the way others think of you. I think that that's something that holds me back sometimes, is I feel like, oh, this is a little bit outside of people's perception of me. And I don't want that something to be a barrier for you guys. And so if you've got personal goals and you want to try new things, I would encourage you to take that dance class or learn how to make mixed drinks. Those are all things I think too that in the digital age you can access on YouTube. I know early in the pandemic, I was on my couch watching bachata videos like, oh my goodness, let me learn how to dance since I can't go to an actual dance class. So don't let things like location be a barrier to you trying new things and just exploring who you are and engaging in different activities that maybe 18-year-old you wouldn't have ever dreamed to be possible. At the end of my podcast every week, I am going to challenge you and give you some things to practice. And so, talking about birthdays and talking about personal growth, the things that I want you to practice this week is naming what are the things that you want to do, but it feels too outside of your norm to do. It doesn't have to be a lot of things. It can just be one or two or even three things of like, this is something that I really want to do, but I don't know if I can do it. And I would encourage you to be bold and take that step, and you'll be surprised where you might end up. You could meet some really cool people at the coffee shop or even at Target, and I love Target. You could, start that TikTok channel or that YouTube channel and just go and be yourself.